Good evening, folks. How's it going out there? Welcome back here to a Wednesday night. It is about 9:41 in the p.m. here in California. July 16th, 2024. 25 is the date, not back in the year 2024. Latest activity here shows a 3.8 earthquake here in the green flag across the area of the Middle America Trench down here. Looks like just off the coast of the maybe the Guatemala area. Maybe south there into the El Salvador region. Not showing up here on the USGS map, but the main focus, we got a lot of earthquake activity up north here into the Alaska area, including looks like a 5.7 earthquake right now. So technically that is the latest quake just coming in here, and that be the largest aftershock here so far. Let me see here. Let's see if the USGS is picking up on that yet. They're not picking up on it. On the seismograph station there, it is showing up quite nicely. A little bit larger signal on the Kodiak Island, Alaska station here from this 5.7 than what we've seen from the previous 5-pointers out there, right? Those are all low-grade 5.0 aftershocks. Now, I want to talk about here real quick the potential here for maybe some larger movement. Now, there's supposed to be obviously a certain amount of aftershocks given this large earthquake, right? A 7.3 is a fairly large event. Mainly, let's see here. Mainly, there should be about 10 to 15 aftershocks of magnitude 5.0 or higher from just a 7.0 earthquake. So, not uncommon to see, a bunch of these fives right now. We do have to watch the magnitudes in relation to if these are getting bigger and more frequently. If we're starting to see a bunch more fives and it's starting to lead up into the six magnitude range, then we could be talking about maybe something bigger brewing out here. Now, the USGS did put out a notification here on this large 7.3 earlier, and surprisingly, it did not strike down into the subduction zone. They believe it struck here at a strike slip boundary, which is a little worrisome because most of the time the larger events that happen down here into the subduction zone relieve a lot of the strain that's built up. So this earthquake that struck here today, more towards the surface area on a strike slip boundary. So that could be a bad sign here that maybe something bigger is about ready to brew, or something is brewing here along the Aleutian Trench in terms of larger movement. Now that 7.3 that struck today is the largest earthquake since 2021 in this area. That's when we last seen an 8.2, a little bit further to the east here, I believe. So let's go ahead and take a look here, see what the USGS is stating on this. I'll show you guys their information. They're calling it the 2025 Sandpoint, Alaska earthquake. Now there is, some possibilities here that we could see something larger. They put out a simplified, basic textbook aftershock forecast, right? You kind of have to put down something here. But I've seen this very similar scenario back in 2019 when we had the Ridgecrest earthquakes. Remember the 6.9 one day, and then one day later, the 7.1. It looked the same. They only showed a small percentage of a bigger quake happening, but it's there. And this is sitting on a major subduction zone, and the fault plane solution there talks about that this rupture occurred on a moderately dipping right lateral strike slip fault, striking towards the north-northwest, or on a steeply dipping left lateral strike slip fault striking towards the east. And therefore, here's the important wording, that this earthquake was not a thrust event on the plate interface itself, which is a subduction zone. So that's kind of a bad sign because that's a surface quake, pretty above the subduction zone, but not associated directly with it. So that really didn't relieve any type of strain in this area that could be building up. So that's something we got to watch pretty closely here. USGS. Is that the 5-pointer that just came in here a few minutes ago? Let's see. That was that was roughly about 0430. That's UTC time on the Kodiak Island quake. It looks like they're reporting that as a little bit smaller than the 5.7 that they showed up here. So either way, that would still be the largest aftershock from this sequence of events. And we've had five pointers. That's, again, we should see maybe upwards around 10 to 15 of them from an earthquake this large. But watch this closely. If this continues to ramp up, maybe see some migration over here across the subduction zone. This could be leading to something bigger here for sure. Now, there was a... Okay, thank you. 6.3? Was that just now? Okay. Missy Mimi's came in there and said there was a 6.3 right now. Let me see here. But that's a 5.5. I don't see anything else coming in right now. It would show up here on the seismograph. So maybe she's getting the information here on her earthquake app late. But that's a big difference, right? 6.3 to a 5.5. We'll watch this and see if it comes in, though, on that seismograph station. That's about the closest one here I have that I'm able to access to the earthquake activity. So, yeah, but anyway, regardless, this did not take place here into the subduction zone interface where most of the strain builds up here for super earthquakes, mega earthquakes. So, therefore, a shallower strike slip boundary here may be pointing towards something bigger happening across this area soon. Back in, let's see here, where my earthquake map is, not that one. I showed you guys earlier here when we were on the live stream how this area is lacking a little bit of larger movement out here historically. We've had a lot across the Aleutian Trench here. That 9.2 that struck, a long time ago was into the subduction zone, but further up north here into this region. But it's kind of lacking here in this area recently. So I'm starting to wonder here if maybe this right here, this earthquake, this fracture earthquake prior to the subduction zone is a sign here that this is getting ready to pop. Because obviously it's going to be a fairly lengthy area when it does rupture up here. So we'll continue to watch that. Again, that's a decent-sized earthquake, 7.3. There was a tsunami warning that was issued, and then eventually it got dropped down to an advisory, and then ultimately canceled here. Stand by for a second while I pull this up. They're late. That's interesting. They're reporting that for the 5.3. Well, that's probably a good thing here because this could be leading to something bigger. But their last one here stated that, oh, there we go. They added the observed maximum tsunami height there across Sand Point. Look at that. Very minor. Very, very minor. Now, I'm sure you guys seen something floating around on social media about the water's receding here, and, there's a big earthquake. I don't know if it's real or not, that image was, but got to be careful what you read on social media. There's so much AI. There's so much, people trying to get clicks on their videos and images. But it was at low tide, so of course the water is going to recede a little bit, right? But if it was really receding like they had mentioned there in that social media post, then we'd be talking about a bigger tsunami than a little 0.2. That's not even 2 feet. That's, a fraction of a foot. And that was about it. So fortunately, this time nothing really big happened out here, aside from the earthquake. But we'll continue to watch this region here. Again, this is very capable of producing much, much bigger earthquakes out here. So we'll watch that. Seismograph stations just went offline there. We'll wait for them to come back. See if we got any migration going on here. There was this earthquake this morning that struck out here, 5.4. And then a little bit later, that bigger earthquake out here. Watch this region here. It seems like it wants to migrate this fashion here across this area. So real quick, while we're waiting on that to stir up, I want to talk about earthquakes here in comparison to last year. A lot of people asking me, man, it just seems like we're getting a lot more earthquake activity here this year. And, that's really not the case. And I'll kind of show you guys, it's just, the thing is, every sports page, every weather page is reporting earthquakes now, for views and clicks, right? They're claiming they're just getting the information out, but they're a sports page. Come on. Anyway, this time last year, up to the date of the 17th here, well, it's the 16th, but they use the UTC time here, I think. We've had, this is from last year, right? From January 1st, 2024 to today's date, but last year, during that same time period, we had 13,813 earthquakes of magnitude 2.5 and above worldwide out here. That's a lot of earthquake activity, right? So let's take a look here and see where we're at for the year so far. This year, and we'll compare it to last year here. It's a neat little feature that the USGS has on here that you can access a lot of information here. I'm telling you, it's definitely useful. To today's date, that's UTC time here. That's why it shows 17th. And we're gonna go. Yep, we're gonna go custom here, 2.5, and then the world, and see what happens. Let's compare the 2 years here up to this time period right now. So here's last year, 13,813. This year, 13,419. 400 earthquakes less this year at this time frame between January 1st and today's date, July 16th, compared to last year. So we got 400 earthquakes less. That's a lot of earthquake activity, but we're still below average in terms of the magnitudes out here. Now this 7.3 today makes 6 7-pointers so far this year. We're halfway through the year. There's 12 months in the year. Technically, we should see about 15 each year for 7.0 to 7.9. We're below that average if you really think about that. So we'll probably, we're going to catch up. We're still expecting an 8-pointer, but I think this may be leading to something bigger than an 8-pointer with the time frame that has passed since the last one, which was 4 years ago, 2021, our last 8-pointer. And we should see, on average here, at least one 8-pointer. And then so on when it comes to the magnitudes here. But I try to cover this every once in a while. I just covered that here recently on one of my more updated videos. But, yeah, that's... well, it looks like they did upgrade that to 5.7 now. See, originally it was a 5.5. Now it's back up to 5.7 here. So that would be the largest aftershock so far, getting up there. There it is, going off there. So Missy Mimi's earthquake app must have came in with a 6.3 magnitude, because it would show up definitely a lot stronger there. But hey, it's still kicking there. A lot of aftershock activity. Again, roughly 10 to 15 5.0 or above earthquakes are expected with a magnitude 7.0. And that would qualify for a 7.0, obviously. So we'll continue to watch it overnight and see what takes place here. As of right now, let's see. There's that 4.2. Just looking for any type of migration of earthquake activity. We have noticed a little increase up north here, a little swarming. That's well west of Anchorage. Sits over here to the east. Those are pretty shallow crustal quakes up there. Like I said, we got to watch this area right here. This suspect earthquake just makes me think that something's about ready to pop here along this area. So watch that there, folks. Again, 7.3. The tsunami was very minimal. That was good. But it's always better to be safe than sorry. The buoys out here, see if they've been reset. They're still in event mode. Seeing something like that is crazy, right? Makes one think that there's a big earthquake or a big tsunami heading inland. But none of these activated into the Cook Inlet. Very localized there to the Sandpoint, Alaska area. And the event details out here just shows a very minor adjustment here. Look at this. These are meters, 4,672. And not even a fraction of a meter water column height difference. So, but it's good to know that they're working. Definitely good to know that those are functionable. But now they got to get out there and reset them, and which I'm not for sure exactly how they do it, but nothing as of right now. So that's all past. Something bigger happens out here. Obviously, we will see some water displacement. The tsunamis out there, major tsunamis, are produced in the subduction zone, such as the Aleutian Trench. So we'll just got to continue to watch that. All right, a lot of earthquake activity, right? A lot, but we're still 400 earthquakes less than what we seen last year at this time. Ooh, what do we got down here across the San Andreas Fault? Looks like it's just off of it here. Within the last half hour or so, one earthquake of a 2.2 magnitude, kind of off this branch here. The let's see, is that Pine Mountain? One of the faults here, kind of off this bend area. I've seen a little 2-pointer. I do not see anything of any major uptick. In fact, earthquake activity in Southern California happens all the time. 51 earthquakes here in Southern California in the last 24 hours. The majority of these, too small to be felt. Nothing above 2.5. So this is very typical, but always got to be on watch out here. We've seen a whole heck of a lot of movement out here across the Pacific Plate. Let's go to the 7 days, 4.5 and above. Look at all this movement now, including Alaska, all through the Kuril-Kamchatka, down across Japan where that big earthquake swarm was occurring. Big earthquake activity there around the Philippines southward. There's that 6-pointer that stirred up here around Indonesia there a few days ago. Bunch of activity down south, all the movement there across Guatemala and even further south off the coast of Panama. Except for, look at this, it's like we're fused together. The North American and the Pacific Plate here. That's kind of sticking out here like a sore thumb, right? One would expect with all this adjustment going on to ultimately see some movement here soon across the West Coast. But right now, it looks like any given day. But just be on guard out here. Northern California, one earthquake here since that earthquake there in Alaska. Struck earlier this afternoon. We had a 2.3. That's a recent quake. Let's check out the Cascadia subduction zone real quick here. See if we got anything major going on for tremor counts. Ooh, that's actually a decent number. 351 epicenters of tremor there across the central coast of Oregon. That's kind of above the southern segment here of the Cascadia, getting into the center portion of that subduction zone. That's a decent uptick there. But really no earthquake activity, but I guarantee you it's building some steam up here for the next big earthquake. As far as Mount Rainier goes, got earthquake activity continuing up there. 22 here in the last 24 hours. That now brings up the total tally to about 780 earthquakes at Mount Rainier, where it's an ongoing swarm. I don't think anything's changed here. Let's go check out the seismograph stations up there real quick at Mount Rainier. These guys reporting 745. This seismograph station right here. Let's check this out, see if we got anything of any interest. There's a more recent quake there. Which one is that? That actually looks kind of like a 1-pointer maybe. Is this the most recent one? That's at 8:12. So 2 hours ago? 2 hours ago, that earthquake? But that wasn't 2 hours ago. This literally popped up here within the last 45 minutes. So that's definitely a legit earthquake. There's a one from 2 hours ago, but this one's bigger. So I was going to say that's probably about a 1.5 or so on this model. All right, so yeah, there's still earthquake activity happening. Nothing changing here yet at that volcano, but definitely got to watch that. It's a decent swarm. Yellowstone seismograph stations there are still offline for whatever reason. They're doing some work there on the site. Hopefully they get it up and running as far as the Yellowstone seismograph stations go. I wanted to see if we could show you guys that signal from that big 7-pointer. Oh, this one looks a little offline there, but yeah, this is just picking up local activity. But anyway, yeah, still earthquake activity occurring up there across Mount Rainier. The rest of Washington, pretty quiet. One earthquake down here early this morning, well south of Mount St. Helens, Nevada area. Still seeing some movement out there in the desert, north of Interstate 80. Let's see here. Really not a whole lot else there across the country, the rest of the country. Typical movement in the oil fields. And really, look at this. I'm going to bring this down here a little bit because we're getting so many earthquakes there on the globe. We need to keep the time frame up here as far as covering the last 24 hours. Looks like there was another 4.2 coming in right now. I don't see it showing up there on the Kodiak Island station, but one on Anza. So look at the S wave there from that 5.7 that just came in up here in Alaska, showing up there in Japan some minutes later. But looking here at the globe, you know, there's really not a whole lot of earthquake activity aside from what's happening up there in Alaska right now. It's drawing all of the attention, so to speak. But when you move one portion of the puzzle around here, these plates, it can definitely have adverse effect. So the general plate movement here of the Pacific plate is off to the northwest, right here, right? Slip rates generally increase as you go over here across the Aleutian Trench. Where we've seen the earthquake today, it's probably about 65 mm per year along that area around Sandpoint, where the 7.3 struck. This is all moving off to the northwest here. North American plate kind of coming down here directly from the north, interacting with that subduction zone. But I still think this area is, you know, even though it's less accumulation here of strain, there hasn't been a lot of large earthquake activity out here. The 8.1 was within this zone a little bit, but there's that Gulf here, the Gulf of Alaska region along that major subduction zone is lacking some large earthquake activity. So I'm thinking that it's continuing to build in that zone. But if we don't see anything here, I do think we should need to watch further areas across the western Pacific here, because that plate is moving off to the northwest, which would put Kuril-Kamchatka, Japan area into that pressurization zone following this earthquake activity today. Because that is taking front and center stage out here. Not a whole lot of movement elsewhere. Just got some typical movement there across the Indonesia area. I am going to go back here and add some more time frame to it, because when I wake up in the morning, there's probably only going to be just this blob of earthquakes on the globe. So I do have to adjust this time frame to account for the number of earthquakes that are taking place out here. Let's see, anything else suspicious going on? Middle America Trench, pretty active, but that's very common. One earthquake way down in it's close to South Africa. USGS not reporting that, but there's a little 4-pointer showing up there. 4.1, fairly recent. All right, let's go check out space weather activity here real quick, see if there's anything else going on here on the sun. You know, we got this large earthquake activity, no space weather activity. You know, I do like to try to compare the two, but in today's events, you know, there's just this large coronal hole is well south on the sun, and all that high-speed solar wind stream is not interacting with the planet. It's well south of the Earth-Sun plane. Now, whether it's just because it's here, is that maybe creating some earthquake activity? Who knows? But I'm leaning more towards that we see when proton events stir up from large solar flares, that's when things really get going with the earthquake activity. But we could probably mark this down in the book here, because we have seen a number of large earthquakes since this large coronal hole has been facing the planet, but somewhat, but it's way south here. I've seen them numerous before, maybe not as large, but they'll come across center disk and nothing happens here as far as earthquake activity. So it's just, you know, a theory that many people have here that I do believe there's a link between the earthquake activity and has a lot to do with the moon cycle as well, and the sun. But I'm trying to keep track here of large earthquakes in relation to space weather events. So I will mark that down, with that being in the Earth-directed view and the elevated earthquake activity here in the last week. As far as any solar flares go, pretty minimal. Not a whole lot going on there. There's really not any solar flaring going on. No major auroras. We're not getting hit with any high KP index from that high-speed solar wind stream. Like I said, that is all shooting south of the Earth-Sun plane. No major flares expected either. It's just kind of, I mean, we have a bunch of them up here, but let's see what we got. Yeah, see, I'm really not impressed with any of these. Maybe this one back over here. There's 3 independent sunspots here, but magnetically complex, they are not. fairly stable. This one here is getting a little bit of growth here within that center core, but we'll watch that one. We'll see what happens. Just really not expecting much here. For now, severe weather, not a whole lot coming up here. Got some thunderstorms out there over the next couple days, but really marginal risk at best here for a Thursday. This is for tomorrow. It looks like mainly just some wind damage, maybe a little bit of hail up there in Montana. There's a 2%. Didn't see that at first, but we got a little 2% there of tornado potential way up north into portions of New York and Vermont, it looks like. See how that tropical system's looking here. I know we got a lot of rain down there across the Louisiana area, but that's not going to develop into anything. Long-term models here. See if we got anything else showing signs of tropical systems. I really don't see it. That's good news. Good news for now. All right. There's I wonder if that's the 4-pointer that came in here. There's some of the S waves showing up at other seismograph stations there in Japan and also Taiwan. But there's a spike. Well, that's Anza. That's down in Southern California. So I'm not for sure what that is. Let's see here. Oh, that's what it was, that 2-pointer there. A little bit ago, right? Maybe not, because this is recent. So anyway, nothing big, just a little blip there on that seismograph station. So we'll keep these up here overnight. I do want to keep the Alaska one up here. It's going to be Kodiak Island, Alaska. That's going to be the local seismograph station up there monitoring. It does pick up, I think it's about 4.5 and above. I can't find anything specifically in this area, so it's a little further east. But as we've seen, these larger quakes there in the upper 5, they show up quite nicely. Anything larger, yeah, they'll show up across all the seismograph stations. So we'll watch that here for tonight, see if anything else migrates further this way. There was this one earthquake that stirred up out here following that 7-pointer. That is still underneath an automatic status, so it may be just a bad reading from the seismograph station there. The large earthquake that struck earlier, it may be thought that there was a local earthquake in the vicinity, but it's underneath automatic status, so it's 50-50 toss-up if it's a legit earthquake or not. But we'll continue to watch that through the night. Stay safe out there, folks, and we'll catch you guys out here in the morning for the Thursday morning update. Have a good one.